When we look at how Iran is reportedly using Bitcoin, what does it mean for the way this asset is used around the world, the way you can trace it? You spent time at Treasury studying this stuff. What have you found at TRM Labs?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's a really interesting moment geopolitically. Over the last decade or so, and it's really important to put some framing around this, Iran has looked to every possible means to evade sanctions. And that means circumventing the U.S. financial system. So that means Chinese yuan, that means other types of assets. And of course now, more and more over the years, Iran has been looking to cryptocurrency. First to evade sanctions, and now more and more using crypto infrastructure as scale. And we can get to that in a moment. But in terms of the toll at the Strait of Hormuz, I think we're very early in this conversation. I want to be clear, TRM today is not seeing on-chain activity that indicates we're seeing this toll paid in crypto at scale. In fact, really only a few ships reportedly have even gone through at this point. What I think the real flag is Iran is starting to look to crypto as one means to evade U.S. financial rails.
Okay, one means, but if it does move forward with that, isn't every transaction recorded on a public ledger somewhere? I mean, at some point, you should be able to trace it back to what Iran is doing.
And that's exactly right. Unlike bulk cash, yuan, other types of currencies that move outside the traditional financial system, here every transaction on a public blockchain, and reportedly Bitcoin is one of the assets involved here, which is obviously an open public ledger. So law enforcement, national security agencies using tools like TRM can track and trace the flow of funds to build investigations and then potentially seize those funds back. So it becomes this cat and mouse game, right, between IRGC financial facilitators and national securities to try to stop Iran from off-ramping the funds to be able to use them for weapons proliferation, destabilizing the region, funding terrorists, and that type of activity.
Is there any way to stop Iran from doing that? I mean, certainly two parties need to be involved, and maybe there are incentives that the U.S. and other parts of the world can place on companies or regions that are transacting with Iran using Bitcoin, but
absolutely.
But is the incentive
absolutely?
Actually
and there's
there?
A great recent example. Absolutely, and there is a great recent example. The U.S. Treasury Department recently sanctioned a cryptocurrency exchange, ZSEX, that was being used at scale by the IRGC to launder $1 billion, which will go towards weapons proliferation and other types of destabilizing activity. And that was because TRM, OFAC, other types of entities were able to identify wallet addresses that were associated with the regime that was using this type of crypto infrastructure. So absolutely, like these become immediate targets for national security agencies globally to go after, and ships that are paying a toll in cryptocurrency, those transactions will be there for the world to see.
You mentioned that Iran has spent decades looking for creative ways to circumvent U.S. sanctions, the UN, crypto among them, front companies. What will you be watching for to seek evidence, to find evidence that Iran is implementing a lot of this through the crypto ecosystem?
What we'll be looking for is large transfers involving wallets that we know to be associated or attributed to IRGC, which is Iran's elite military unit, which controls so much of life in Iran. That's the ZSEX example. We've seen other similar examples. Are these wallets being used? Are we seeing large sums going into these wallets? Are we seeing large sums move? Are we seeing Iranian exchanges like Novatex used at scale? So what we're looking for is large amounts of funds being transferred. We've moved from a world where we're seeing sort of one-off transactions here and there to launder funds or maybe violate export control laws to these large infrastructure plays where Iran is really leveraging crypto infrastructure, whether it's stable coins or exchanges, to move funds. So we're looking for large transfers that we can associate directly with IRGC.
Is there a way to cut Iran off at all?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I think that the key is to continue to ramp sanctions, essentially, to ensure that if they are moving funds, then they are moving funds outside the U.S. financial system. I think the other piece to this is to go after those that are potentially violating what we call secondary sanctions. Are one of these ships owned by a large company? Are there large oil companies involved here? Are there other corporations that are insurance companies that are involved in some of these shipping channels? Are they involved even on a secondary basis with these tolls being paid in cryptocurrency or frankly anything else? And that's really where the U.S. can have an impact. It's not just cutting off Iran, which we've been trying to do for a very long time, but it's cutting off anyone who could possibly conduct business there.
Ari, I just want to end with sort of a big picture question about your time at Treasury, using sanctions and anti-money laundering tools against Iran, North Korea, drug kingpins, and then also the work that you're now doing at TRM, because you partner with Tether and Tron. Those are entities that have been marked as conduits for illicit flows. How do you make sense of that? How do you square that, given your experience at Treasury and also now at TRM?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And even before Treasury, I was a prosecutor for about 10 years in the Department of Justice. So thinking about these issues all the time, I think that the reality is that we had reported for years that there was an overwhelming amount of illicit activity in Tether on the Tron blockchain. And both of those entities approached us and said, hey, we want to mitigate these risks. We want to go out there and work to identify and ultimately seize back illicit proceeds in Tether. And we've been working to do that over the last really 18 months or so. We've seized over $400 million in illicit proceeds just through that T3 program, and that doesn't even account for so much beyond. I think my take is, look, when you're going after bad actors, you've got to go where they operate. And the reality is you're not going to go to places that are inherently clean. You're going to go clean up places that have illicit activity in them. And that's, our mission at TRM is to build a safer world, to stop illicit actors from engaging with crypto. You got to go to where they operate.